Welcome to the LDN radio show, brought to you by the LDN Research Trust. I'm your host, Linda Elsiegood. I have an exciting lineup of guest speakers who are LDN experts in their field. We will be discussing low-dose Naltrexone and its many uses in autoimmune diseases, cancers, etc. Thank you for joining us. Today we're joined by Anne, who's from St. Louis in the US, who takes LDN for MCAS and EDS. Thank you for joining us today, Anne.
Thank you. I am very happy to be here.
So could you tell us, how long ago was it when you started to notice things weren't quite right?
Well, one of the things I've discussed with my doctor, Dr. Weinstock, is that I have had annoying little symptoms my whole life, but they've never gotten to a level that's been debilitating, which is in some ways unique. I feel like I have had a panoply of things that just really bother me, and I've always considered myself, or been considered by my family and friends, just a little bit fussy. Things bother me, and I get rashes, and I get unexplained symptoms my whole life since I was a child.
Wow. So other than the rashes, can you think of anything else that was an issue for you?
Sure. So most of my symptoms come out in skin-related symptoms, but I've learned to educate myself through my doctor and through different social media groups. And when people mention things, I always go, "Oh, that's me too." I definitely have GI symptoms, like almost everyone, and that's why I have a GI doctor. Some of my little GI symptoms would be things like, "Oh, I can't eat dinner late because it gives me a tummy ache, and then I'm up all night long." But when you have mild symptoms, you tell someone that and they're like, "Oh yeah, me too." But they're not up all night every time they eat after 6:30 p.m. It's just now and then. You know what I mean?
Okay. So when did it become an issue that you needed to actually make somebody listen to you?
Sure. So I think a number of things all happened at once. I had distinct hormone changes as I entered perimenopause and menopause. So my symptoms increased then. Also, I had children quite late at 40, late for me. So I had young children who were keeping me up in the night as I was entering perimenopause. And then COVID hit, and I'm caring for aging parents, and my body's out of whack. And I have 2 teenage boys at home. And I think just stress and my body started to react intensely, and I became horribly insomniac. I didn't sleep through the night for probably 5 out of 7 nights. The other 2, I would sleep in exhaustion. And all of my symptoms flared. If I went out for some kind of walk or exercise, I'd get exercise urticaria. I'd get itching on my body. If I was out in the sun, I'd get a rash. And all of the little things that happen now and then started happening more frequently. And then in addition to all that, or because of all that, I was tired all the time. I couldn't schedule things because I didn't know when I'd feel well. And I never scheduled anything before 12 or 1 p.m., meaning social engagements, an exercise class, anything like that. I just knew, like, oh, I'm not going to feel good until 1 o'clock, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. So how long ago was that?
That was probably, I'd say 2020, 2021. And so 3 to 4 years ago, it became a larger issue, but also I got more information. So I learned I didn't have to live with it. And that's pretty much a key item for me, who is not debilitated by my symptoms. That helped me so much when I realized, oh, it's just not me being a pain in the rear end or me being high maintenance. It's actually a thing.
So who was the first doctor you
don't have to say names, but how long ago
Sure.
was it the first doctor that you went to see?
Sure. So I started exploring alternative medicine and things outside the mainstream as long as 15 years ago, feeling, oh, nobody else feels as crummy as I do sometimes. And I went to an integrative doctor in Chicago through Northwestern University. And she was largely helpful because she taught me to go gluten-free, dairy-free, and that alleviated a lot of symptoms within 48 hours. And then I continued to see integrative doctors. I moved to St. Louis and had much more difficulty finding one in 2010, 2011. Things have really changed. And then I progressed through all of that until I had my colonoscopy with Dr. Weinstock, who knows so much about this. And he was able to stain for mast cells, if I'm using the right terms, and was able to say, well, you don't pass the histamine test, a blood test showing histamine markers, and you don't pass this other test, but boy, you do have mast cells, too many of them, showing that something's going on and your body is reacting often and intensely. And that was very validating to me.
Mm-hmm. So what was the plan once you'd got
the plan? Immediately, he knows so much about all this. He immediately put me on LDN, and I slept within 48 hours. And it was remarkable, just remarkable. In addition, he put me on a H1 histamine blocker, Zyrtec, an H2 blocker, Pepsid generic, which I don't remember the name. And those two also, I added each one of those after a month or two. And I reached a baseline of not reacting all the time. I could go out more or less if I wasn't having lots of different symptoms building up. And as they say, I've learned in the histamine world, in social media, my histamine bucket, if it's not full, I can go out and jog and I don't get rashes and uncomfortable and sick to my stomach, like an allergic reaction. I can go out in the sun and not have a rash. I still can't eat late, but I can eat more things than I was eating before.
Well, that's a positive thing.
Yes, 48 hours. And I'm a person with niggling symptoms, not a person who is debilitated by all of that, and it was transformative for me.
Mm-hmm. So could you describe a typical day before you were diagnosed with MCAS and EDS? Could you just say, what you had to do from when you woke up to when you went to bed?
Sure. So I would wake up late because I was up in the night. So I would go back to bed I think I was having a histamine dump, as the term I've learned, where my body has adrenaline and too many histamines, and I'd wake up around 3 a.m. even after a perfect day the day before, no stress, my family's happy. We watched a movie, I had a quiet night, and I ate all healthy the day before or the week before, and I would wake up in the night and my heart is racing and I feel anxious and I know nothing's wrong, but my body is saying like, oh my gosh, you need to worry about this. You need to obsess about something. And I would find something random that would make me anxious. And I'd calm down and I'd read. Then I'd go back to sleep around 5 a.m. My kids would get themselves off to school and my husband always does the morning routine. They're older now or recently, so they can do it themselves anyway. But I'd wake up at 8:30 and I'd feel like I'd fought a battle with an army of trolls, as I tell my husband, all night long. So I feel tired and heavy. I would do quiet house chores, no music, no noise, nothing. Everything has to be under control and silent. I typically wouldn't eat. Not eating helps me. It helps to fast a little, and then I'll eat breakfast around 11, and I'm very careful about what I eat. So I'd have my special little organic chicken sausage, or maybe organic and egg or something like that. I'm very careful about what I eat. Maybe an apple. I would do quiet things until I'd start to feel energy in the afternoon. Then I could actually do email. And, you know, when you work on computers now, there's no time for making mistakes. You just fire something off and then it's gone, and you think, oh no, what did I say? Or I couldn't find something, or I'll make mistakes and not know what I'm doing. So I can tackle more challenging things in the afternoon. I prepare dinner, I do all those household things, and then boom, you hit the wall around 6 o'clock because you were up in the night and your sleep is screwed up. And maybe I'll get some exercise in the afternoon. Maybe I'll take a walk, or on really good times. And tennis outdoors is like a huge challenge, but I could do that. But again, I was never completely debilitated, but everything's very careful. I don't drink. It makes me sick to my stomach. I don't have a glass of wine with dinner with my family or friends. If we go out to dinner, I make sure it's at 6 o'clock, not 7:30 or 8, because I don't feel good. So a typical day would involve lots of annoying, controlling behaviors, which, you know, you get used to a very long time.
Mm-hmm. So what's it like today?
Today, I participate in exercise. I do cardio, dance, and tennis every single day, sometimes 2 or 3 classes a day. For the joy of being able to do it, I can exercise intensely for an hour and do spinning, things you would do in dance that would make you so used to make me uncomfortable, because maybe POTS symptoms or something in that field. I'm still learning about it. So things like tennis or dance would have been extremely challenging, and I lived in fear of tripping over my feet. So now I will do that 2 to 3 times, 7 o'clock with the rest of my family. I have a personality. I only don't sleep in the night if my teenagers have given me some extraordinary stress, like, oh no, you guys, you know, you're teenagers, how could you do this? You know, those type of parenting moments. So I sleep through the night all the time. I exercise intensely. I eat more foods, but I'm still very careful about that, out of habit, maybe. So yes, things have changed very much. I can make social plans. You know, I just feel like I'm a lot more flexible and maybe a lot more fun.
What about the GI issues?
I was diagnosed at that colonoscopy with, it's not SIBO, but it's the sister diagnosis. It's hydrogen, I think, HMO. I'm not sure the name of it, but anyway, I resolved that in 2 months, taking what Dr. Weinstock prescribed, which was allium, basically garlic pills. And it shocked both of us, because that's not, from what I've learned, a common way to resolve this issue. So suddenly I could eat onions and garlic much more than I'd ever been able to. And there was a time where it got very intense and I couldn't have any at any time. And now I can eat onions and garlic. Let's see. I still am very careful about eating late. I haven't experimented a lot with that in the last 2 years. I take digestive enzymes if I think I'm going to be pushing the limits. I suffer from constipation, and I feel like that is alleviated, or if I have symptoms, I think I can diagnose it based on my bucket of symptoms being fuller. That one's a little bit trickier for me. I have my list of symptoms here. I still have alcohol intolerance, and Dr. Weisbluth said that might be a function of a particular enzyme that I'm missing or don't secrete. and it might not be a factor that would be resolved with medicine. I never really got bloating, so that's not an issue for me. And then I think I can eat more histamine-filled foods, but again, I'm still very careful with that. If I have something that's high histamine, I might scale back on other things for a day.
And how did your EDS affect you?
So that one I'm still figuring out with Dr. Weisbluth, because it's not something that I know a lot about, and that's technically of expertise since he's a GI doctor. But I definitely have hypermobility. I pass all of the things at 59 on the Beighton scale, where you can stretch and bend and do all these kooky things. I had hip dysplasia when I was born. I had scoliosis. Those are all little things I've learned, if I'm right, I could be wrong, that might fall under some of the EDS diagnoses. I made monster fingers once when my son was, where you make them stiff. I'm not going to do it because one of my fingers is permanently loose from doing that. I did it with my son, and then it's never gone quite back. If I wear certain shoes, my toes will, they don't go out of joint like someone with true EDS, but something is wrong, and I had to kind of press or click it back into shape. I have loose hip joints that click and make noise and are uncomfortable when I'm doing like riding a bike repetitively. So I'm still learning about EDS, and most of my symptoms, again, are mild enough that I just avoid anything that would put me out of shape. If I want to stretch my arm, my elbow can come to this side of my head. But now I've learned with the EDS and messing up one of my fingers that I'm just not going to do that, because I'm not quite sure what will happen, but I don't want to know. So I'm still learning about it. And I don't know if I'm hypermobile or if I have EDS because of some of the areas. And I've learned that you need genetic testing to really verify it. And it's not something that I've pursued or done yet, but I'm curious and would like to know more.
Well, thank you very much for having shared your experience with us today.
Of course. I'm really thankful to share it also.
I'm Dr. Leonard Weinstock. The guy who's been prescribing LDN since 2005, and I've seen the wonders. And I keep on seeing them, especially in hard to diagnose conditions. They're not that hard to do, but once you know about mast cell activation syndrome, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, you'll find that 17% of your friends or relatives have one or more of these conditions, and you can help them. We're making a documentary to wake up the medical community, to educate the population, but we need funding. So please fund whatever you can afford, no matter how little. www.mcasfund.com. That's mcasfund.com.
Any questions or comments you may have, please email me, Linda, Linda, at ldnrt.org. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciated your company. Until next time, stay safe and keep well.